Reimer, our next guest, in a bar in downtown Toronto, but it's not how it sounds. The context was we were both speakers at the Canadian Institute of Sport's post-Rio Olympics athlete camp, and we were having a business meeting, and I'll never forget the story about one of the athletes that he manages doing this amazing sponsorship activation that involved climate change and a mattress company and local politicians and Yoko Ono.
Yoko Ono.
So Russell is the founder. Yeah, I know, it was amazing. So if anyone's interested in that story, connect with Russell and ask a little more about it. It's incredible. Russell is the founder and president of Manifesto, and a consultant specializing in major event bid development, content strategy and production, and Olympic, pro and action sport athlete management. He's an active member in Canada's sport community, and he's developed an award-winning program to promote tobacco-free lives to youth, which is called Sport for Life. He's founded a community movement providing free sport discovery for kids called All Sport One Day, and has led successful bids to bring major sport events to Canada. Russell joins the ECCO Think Tank today to share his perspective on the opportunities and challenges that the sport business world face in light of COVID-19. Hello, Russell.
Hey, Vicky. I'm just remembering that night of having those drinks in downtown Toronto and telling that story. Yeah. What a moment to get an email from Yoko Ono. I mean, it's probably not going to happen a second time. So thanks for having me today.
Fake, didn't you? You didn't think it was her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was extraordinary.
Yeah.
But deserved. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So good evening over there in it's Calgary.
Yeah, I'm in Calgary. Sunny day.
So I really value your perspective. I really admire the way that you're managing athletes. There's a lot of athlete managers out there, and then there's you. And
I appreciate that.
You're different. And I know that everything you do is from the heart, but you're also completely switched on when it comes to business, and you understand sport and you understand community, and you bring all those different facets to your work, and it shows.
Thank you.
I'm interested to know, I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions, which begin with, what are the current issues and challenges that you see within that sport business dynamic?
Yeah, to open, I really wanted to try and do a bit of a reframe. I know you've asked these questions of most of the panelists or the people that have been on today. And, when I was giving some thought to it over the last couple of days, not only because of COVID, but I had a stroke on February 3rd. And, there's an opportunity, I think, to take a pause and rethink almost at a DNA level how you decide to live your life, which I think can create some actionable steps for what you actually choose to do, the things that you actually choose to leave behind, the things that you choose to pick up. So I wanted, there's a lot of things that are affecting our industry right now. There's very real challenges with the shifting risk calculus for live events. There's a lot of uncertainty about corporate marketing budgets, activation planning that's been deferred, in some cases canceled. I don't think I've ever reviewed force majeure language in our agreements to the extent that I have now. I think there's going to be a massive rewrite on how people frame force majeure. There's a pending crisis in consumer confidence that I think is coming that will be the next wave of how we see COVID impact our business. But, there's been some positives too. There's been an accelerated move from live fan experiences to online fan experiences. And I think that space has been a pretty exciting space to be exploring and trying to figure out how to make it work for our talents. But there's also a feeling, I think, of being left behind in what I think is mostly a phantom innovation curve that isn't really happening. This productivity push to emerge from the pandemic with even more abs and a desire to adopt a 5 a.m. Morning ritual like billionaires have. I mean, all of these things are mostly not real. And those are the things that I think we should begin to separate and look at differently than than how we would scrolling through Instagram or Twitter, and reading about what we should be or should become as a result of the pandemic. So for a lot of our athletes, whether they're pros in the NHL and NBA, Major League Baseball, action sports, some whose seasons have been put on hold, others whose seasons have been canceled altogether or potentially canceled. There's a lot of impact. Craig just spoke before me, Craig Foster, and he was talking about the Canadian Olympic athletes group here in Canada. And one of the clients that we work with, Rosie McLennan, was the one who led the discussion that ultimately led to Canada withdrawing its team entirely from the Tokyo 2020 Games, and simply saying, no, it is not in our athletes' interest to be doing this now. That was applauded internationally, and became something that I think was a clarion call, where athletes were taking the lead in a discussion that needed to take place, where people who have titles, leadership titles, chose to abdicate those and not be out in front of the global pandemic. So, we've seen lots of opportunities where people have just picked up and filled the leadership gap during the pandemic. I've got stories that I want to share with you too, but really what I wanted to do in the next couple of questions was really change the focus in the brief time I have with you, Vicki, to talk about some of the ways that my athletes have taught me through their action, how our agency should approach COVID-19, and how I should personally approach COVID-19. So
that sounds good.
If that's okay with you, maybe
sure.
We can keep going on questions.
Yes.
And then I'll answer those.
Yeah. So we sort of switch from acknowledging and recognizing the challenges and the issues, which I think is important. As I said at the start with Catherine, our first speaker, and I think it's been a constant. At the core of this issue, this global crisis, is people dying from a virus that we don't have a cure for at the moment. So that's kind of where this starts, and then it ripples out and affects everybody in different ways, mentally, socially, financially, just every single way you can imagine. So I think it's really important for us to recognize and honor that, but then to take that next view is looking at the positives and looking at the opportunities and being as creative or as out there as you like, or as practical as you like. So if we switch into that and have a look at what are some opportunities that exist as a direct result of this crisis.
Yeah, for me, the biggest single opportunity with COVID-19 is that we all have to learn how to become fighters. I think that, I'll give a couple of examples of what I mean by that, but we have to also learn to choose the fights where we can be really difference makers and let our bruises build our character, right? And let our opposition to things that we know are wrong be the things that guide us and make us stronger. Personally, I think that's the lesson that I've learned from athletes, and I'll break it down in a couple of stories. I think for me, the first and most important thing during COVID, and the biggest opportunity right now, and this is from a personal and business perspective, because I don't have a lot of separation, I think you know this, between how our business philosophically acts every day and how we show up personally to support our clients. We don't make any separation in what is good for our business and what is the right thing to do. We always seek to do the right thing first. And in doing that, we figure out how to make that good business. And that's been the approach that I think has helped us succeed, but we've also seen it reciprocated in so many of the athletes that we work with. And it's really been beautiful during during COVID to watch them step up. I told you I had a stroke, and a friend of mine gave me this book. And I think the first thing I'd like to communicate is that we all have to try and seek small moral rebellions, right? That to me, in our family, we say strong spine, soft heart, right? And I think that the crisis has prepared us to be fighters in a way that we haven't had to be for decades. but we have to remember that the motivating reason why we fight, right? So at a family level, that's our motto: strong spine, soft heart. I read this book. Someone gave it to me when I had my stroke 90 days ago. And Catherine Sanderson, the author of Why We Act, she defines moral rebels as those who are not afraid to act uprightly in the face of social pressure. We saw, maybe for the first time, we can actually see and reflect in real time and identify systemic wrongs that have existed all around us. Craig was just talking about injustices and inequities, right? The pandemic holds up a mirror, right? So we have an opportunity to see past the pace of everyday life, right? And look at what's revealed, right? With the gift of time and observation that we have right now, right? What could come to you as a small moral rebellion, right? A single injustice that you stand up against could become your calling. You really don't know, right? It's that slow burning fire that motivates you and blends, personal purpose and potential. And I wanted to give that recent example of a moral rebellion of Rosie McLennan to add a little bit of color to the story that Craig was just telling about Team Canada. Rosie is the flag bearer for Canada. She's a two-time Olympic gold medalist. She'll be going for her third in Tokyo 2021. It'll be the first time if she wins that a Canadian has successfully defended their Olympic gold medal twice. She saw that the IOC was not going to make a decision, that they were waiting on Tokyo OC, and whatever risk mitigation was happening, whatever behind the scenes conversation was happening, she recognized immediately that this was not going to work for Canada's athletes. She phoned me up and she said, listen, I'm a flag bearer. I have to lead. What do you want to do, right? Why do we act? Why did someone like Rosie determine that she was not going to be a bystander? She was not going to let something simply happen to her and her Team Canada teammates. So she made this bold decision that was applauded internationally, referenced by Craig in his keynote, that prompted the one-year deferral of the games. This was one woman in Canada speaking on behalf of Canadian athletes almost unanimously, who created a domino effect throughout the world, right? Immediate response. And that when that press release went out with Canadian Olympic Committee's blessing on the Sunday night, it wasn't even a week until Tokyo had deferred the games to 2021. So we take small action, right? Moral rebellions, right? Instead of choosing to be a bystander, which is a choice, right? We have seen people step up with a strong spine, soft heart, do the right thing. Now, there's been a lot of unintended consequences of this, and a lot of athletes in our group, they are trying to figure out how to financially stretch a 5-year quad with 4 years of money, right? It's very real, but not one of them, regardless of their economic circumstance or the financial challenges, not one of them think it was the wrong decision, right? So it's revealed the good in others, and I think that to me was one of the biggest learnings of COVID so far. So I want to encourage people to seek small moral rebellions. That's my initial thought on that.
And you can do that, like you say, in a personal way, but also in a business way. We did that too. We joined a campaign that we didn't actually have the capacity for beforehand, but hey, guess what? We do now.
Yeah, and there's time.
Like, we've always wanted to do that. We didn't have a reason, and now we do, and it's fantastic. It gives, I think, if you do it on a personal level, there's not just the impact you create, but what it does within your soul and within your heart and your mind. But when you get other people involved and you share that, it's incredibly powerful and bonding, and impactful as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you for that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
You want to go to the next question, or do you want? I have one more example that I wanted to provide.
I think, let me just look at our timing. I think we probably need to go to the next question because we've almost run out of time. It goes so quickly.
Yeah, of course.
This is, I guess, what do you think opportunities might look like after the crisis ends? Do you think that there's something that might be different, an opportunity that exists then that doesn't exist now?
Yeah, I really do. But I think the opportunity that exists now is to really change at a DNA level who we want to become. I think out of all change comes that reflection. We've been given the gift of reflection. Nothing will change if all that we're trying to do is get back to normal. I was saying that I had a stroke 90 days ago. My good friend, Denny Morrison, he's a client. He's a 4-time Olympic medalist in speed skating. And he had a stroke just about a year before the Pyeongchang 2018 games. And he phoned me up and said, "Hey, if it's cool, I'll come take you for lunch and, we'll share stroke stories." And Denny dropped some really beautiful truths on me over sushi. And one of the things that really stuck with me was that he said, I used to approach everything, right? And this idea that I was a 18-year-old world champion, I was a 19-year-old world record holder. I went into the Olympic Games in Vancouver 2010 in my home province, trying to win 3 medals for Canada. And he had everything. And his pattern to gain that success was fairly straightforward. F you, I'm Denny Morrison. That was his response to everything. "Oh, you don't think I can do this? Well, F you, I'm Denny Morrison." And he physically bullied his way into an extraordinary career, right? But there was nothing that could have prepared him for the stroke. So his comeback wasn't about a return to normal, where he simply sought to become a more resilient version of the old self that he had before the stroke.
Yes.
Right? The doctor said to him, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So really, I'm really sorry. We've just run out of time. But
okay.
I guess to turn that back, we are now connecting with the opportunities that exist after the crisis, because we're creating them now for ourselves to be able to navigate and approach things differently in the future.
Yeah, take the time to rewire yourself, I think, is the point that I really want to make here. If Denny Morrison can do this and successfully, come back to the Olympic Games in 2018 and just get to the line after having a stroke 11 months before, when his doctor said for 6 weeks he couldn't have a 75 beats per minute heart rate, right? He figured out a way not just to adapt, but to become anti-fragile. Not just a more resilient version of his old self. He became something new. And he put his old self away. He doesn't respond characteristically in the same way that he did before. And he's a much better person as a result of deciding to leave what's heavy behind.
We're going to leave it on that moment. And I can't wait to watch this and all the other videos again so I can really listen. Because I'm looking at times and the next speakers and I'm like, oh, hang on, this is really good. As I knew it would be. And thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you're one of the most awesome people that I've met. So it's great to stay connected in this way.
All right.
Thank you,
love
Russell.
you, Vicky. Love your work, and hope to see you
you
again soon. Maybe
Definitely.
in person even.
Yeah, why not? Thank you. See you, Russell.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.